Hello, welcome to the 7th episode of the Entrepreneur Roundup. Jayendran, welcome.
Sure,
So thanks a lot for taking the time to be here with us today. So, before we get started, I'd love to know a little bit about you personally, and then perhaps a bit about how you got to founding Vyakya.
Sure. First of all, thank you for doing this. It's a great initiative and extraordinarily simple, and like the greats say, simple is difficult. And thanks for putting it together.
Pleasure.
So about me, I'm a chartered accountant turned data scientist. So a lot of my work operates in the intersection of chartered accountancy and data science, and that's essentially what we do in my company, Vyakya Technologies, as well. To give you a backdrop, I used to work my first job after chartered accountancy was for a accounting BPO focused in the US, and we were working with CPA firms across the United States. And then I moved on to Ernst & Young and was working in the data analytics team. And since we were working for clients as well as for different accounting, audit, taxation, different service lines in Ernst & Young as well. So that gave me a good insight in terms of what the market is like for this intersection of data science and accounting. And that's what I'm trying to now do in my business.
Okay. No, that's a good introduction. Thank you. So, specifically, what is the problem that Vyakya is trying to address as a company?
Sure. What we are trying to do is to bring data sciences, machine learning, analytics, artificial intelligence to accounting firms. Our focus is outside of the big four. Accounting firms do not have strong data science footprints, and that's the market we are interested in addressing.
Okay. Is there any specific problem set that you want to address, or is it how would you describe the problem set?
So there are different problems. One of the broad-based problem in accounting has always been rule-based. It has always been yes or no based, and the judgment parts of all accounting work is done by human experts.
Right.
And with today's data science technology, it is possible to be able to augment that human judgment with technology, and that's where there has been great breakthroughs in areas like marketing, in social or digital spaces.
Right.
And we want to bring the same thing to the accounting space.
So, how would you describe what is the value will this service add? Will it save money, or what does it do?
See, there are different. We like to classify our services in two parts. One is where it allows you to do things that were not possible before, like for example, reviewing a 3 lakh item ledger line by line for tax compliance. It's theoretically not possible unless you use technology. So that's one part. The other part is where it augments capability and reduces cost. So it allows you to do things that took you a month in hours. Yeah. So there is a bit of both in most of our solutions. What we like to do at some point in the future, I guess, will be where RPA starts doing things which are cognitive. Our interest is in the decision space more than in the software automation space, which is where RPA comes from. So most of our solutions are directly built as software. So, and it is more closer to a web application than to an RPA.
Right, right. And is your product planned for a global launch, or is it more for the Indian market, or what are you looking at?
It's definitely global. The accounting processes are global and standard. So, and I've always been in global accounting firms. So the interest is always to look beyond the borders of India. And having said that, India is a great market. We're doing quite well in India as well, and we want to do this in different parts of the world. the fundamentals are the same.
Great, great. And what is your next, vision for the next 5 years for Vyakya?
So our vision is fairly clear. We want to work with the 10 to 90, 10 to 100, the 90 firms that come in the top, like say number 11 to number 100 in the world is our interest
sweet spot
today. That's our sweet spot. And we are also figuring out the best way to deliver services to these accounting firms through an analytic platform. So we built this proprietary platform called Prudent.ai, on which you could do machine learning in an accelerated manner and deliver it very efficiently. So it solves most of the problems that typically come when you set this up as an individual project. So we've condensed all the difficult portions into a platform. So the only portions that need to be built are the ones that are very specific to the problem. So 80% is standard, the 20% customization, and the solutions ready.
That is fantastic. So you have built this Prudent.ai, which is like an accelerator for these firms to come in and start deploying your solution, to their problems.
Yes.
So one of the things that you are a chartered accountant, and typically tech entrepreneurs, this is the first time I'm meeting a chartered accountant who's a tech entrepreneur. So how did you spot this problem, this market opportunity?
So I'm a chartered accountant mostly by qualification, more tech by practice. So the interesting part is my first boss, and they were two chartered accountants who were running a tech IT services company. So and they had their background with technology. So to some extent, I guess they were a bit of an inspiration to look at the technology space. And I was always very comfortable with technology from when I was young. My school was one of the interesting ones which had computer science in commerce when I did high school. So I've always been open to technology. So that's probably why it's an attractive spot for me to be in.
So it's a combination of your education, some mentors, some folks that you saw, got inspired. That is great.
Yeah.
So now that you are part of NASSCOM's 10,000 startups, how has your journey been? With 10,000 startups.
See, NASSCOM has been fantastic for us. We were running it as a typical startup garage, in our case apartment, but we were kind of in our own world, so to speak, right? NASSCOM, coming to NASSCOM made it very interesting for us in terms of being able to see what the ecosystem is like, what other startups are doing. It's opened us up to discover some things that we are actually doing very, very well and we didn't realize, as well as some things which we thought we were doing okay, and clearly there are others who are doing better and there's something to learn from. That's probably been the best takeaway for us from being a part of the 10,000 startup warehouse.
Excellent. So Jayendran, continuing on our previous discussion, I know that the entrepreneurial journey is typically is not easy, right? So how is your ecosystem supporting you? Can you just take me through the last 2 years, what you have experienced, who are the people that have really helped you?
For me, it started pretty much with this whole thing where you keep saying, look, we can do this better. If I was doing it, I will do this and all that. And my wife has been always been this person who's my keeper of conscience, so to speak. So one day she turns back and says, like, look, if you think you can do this better, why don't you just go ahead and do it? And at that point, I just basically stopped complaining. But I was thinking about it, and she was one of my first, what can I say, validations. So as an entrepreneur, you have many ideas, but you also have a lot of self-doubt, and validation is very important. So I asked her, saying, so I'm want to do this. Now I'm going to quit this job in EY and do this on my own. Are you okay? Do you think this makes sense? Her being okay was pretty much the first step to start. The second important validation is that you have to find somebody else who's also thinking this is a reasonably good idea to do this with. So my co-founder, Aarti, who's also one of my colleagues at EY doing data science. So she again thought this was definitely worthwhile and good to do. And that's pretty much how we started. She is also a data scientist and accountant like me, Aarti, but she brings very different skills and perspective. So she's more hands-on execution. I'm a little less hands-on. I tend to do a little more sales and strategy and execute a little bit. She does a lot more execution. And second, she is a 30-year-old. I am a 40-year-old. So I sometimes think I'm over the hill and she's still on this side of the hill. So somebody being much younger helps. Her perspective on problems are very different. It helps us steady the ship sometimes. I like to think I'm a little bit more old school than she is. So that allows us to stay fresh in an industry which is very fresh. The whole point of us doing it and doing it well is about being fast and agile. I have a tendency to go into a lot more deep thinking and research in a lot of my problems.
Right.
So somebody with a little more of an action bias is very useful. And these are great qualities that my co-founder brings. It has been rough. We are a bootstrapped startup as well. So there are times when you definitely need support from outside of the company. However great your idea is, your individual beliefs are, the system really tests you, and you need a fallback.
Correct. No, that's a great story. I think no age is old or young enough to be an entrepreneur. So I think once again, congratulations on starting this and explaining to others, the kind of ecosystem that needs to be there to propel or push your journey. So in this journey of ups and downs, do you have any funny moments that you want to share with the audience?
Yeah, I mean, this has actually been an exciting ride, like every day. So one of the first things we said, we were looking at different problems that we can solve and things like that. So one of the first things we did was to build. We had two ideas. So we said we want to do this. These are solutions we want to build. And we were very keen on writing some software. So we said we will write one facial recognition application where you will be able to match like an ID card with like a person's photograph. Like we said, look, this tidal park is, if you don't have an ID card and you're a visitor, it's such a pain getting in because they need to first make you wait outside and get your driver's license and things like that. And I said, what if we can build something that will do this? So we built it. It's built and it's running. We branded it. We got a domain called Identiger. It's running. The most exciting use of that has basically been friends when they have a kid and then they have this argument about whether the kid looks like the dad or mom. They use my app and it gives a score saying who's more more closer match. And this has been the biggest use of what we are doing. So whenever people ask me what do you do and explain to me in a way I can understand, I generally tell them to go to identiger.com and try it out. This has been the most unimagined use of our product. We also said, look, we wanted to build something on maps. We said this Google Maps is unfortunately it doesn't recognize a lot of spots and dead ends and things like that in Madras. And one of my street is one of those. So it always tells me to drive through a wall, which I can't. So we said we are going to build something that will be an alternative to Google Maps. Thankfully, we got sane and decided not to proceed with those ideas too far because we clearly didn't have the energy and expertise to do it. But at some point, we want to build it and put it out because these were problems which were very close to us when we started.
Correct. Well, maybe you think of a solution, maybe Google will acquire you. And, so now, before we wrap up, if you were to give some advice to an aspiring entrepreneur, what would that be?
It's very difficult to describe it as much as you can experience it, but surely I think 2-3 things that you should do will be: one, you definitely need like a reality check for whatever your thoughts are. As an entrepreneur, your vision pulls you, but it also pulls you sometimes very far, and you might want somebody else to kind of do this reality check. So whether that's a co-founder, whether that's a partner or spouse, or whether that is friends, doesn't matter, but you need the reality check. You should bounce your ideas with somebody and get some counter thinking for everything. You need a devil's advocate almost. Correct. Right? That's probably my biggest recommendation to entrepreneurs. If you can't get it past your devil's advocate, maybe you should think a little more harder about what you're trying to do.
Correct. Okay. Well, thanks a lot. It has been a pleasure speaking with you.
Likewise.